Namaskar and welcome viewers. You are with me Surbhi Unyal and I teach philosophy at Hansraj College, University of Delhi. Friends, we have been doing a series on Introduction to Philosophy, and in that we started with Indian philosophy. In the series of lectures we have discussed various schools from the Indian tradition, and following upon that, in the last lecture we discussed Vedanta philosophy and various schools that falls under the Vedanta tradition. So, following up upon that, in today's lecture, we would be discussing Advaita Vedanta. We have discussed some of the salient features of Advaita Vedanta in our last lecture, where we discussed that how Advaita Vedanta originated and from where did it take its foundational ideas and what is the basic aim of Advaita Vedanta. So, let's move a little further from that. So, giving a brief outline again, that Adi Shankaracharya, building upon Gaudapad's foundational ideas, strengthened the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. His major commentaries focused on the Brahma Sutras, Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. In his philosophical exposition, Shankar departed from empirical analysis and directly approached the absolute, which is known as Brahman. So basically, Adi Shankaracharya was influenced by Gaudapad's foundational idea about the notion of the reality or the absolute reality, and he has taken, was also influenced and focused his attention on from Brahma Sutras, from the Upanishads and also from Bhagavad Gita. And in order to give his idea, Shankar then departed from the empirical analysis and he focused on the absolute. This absolute is known as Brahman. So according to Advaita, there is no duality. So it is non-dual. Advaita, one and many, infinite and finite, subject and object, etc. are the limitations of consciousness that cannot comprehend the Brahman due to ignorance or avidya. There is no language to describe Brahman. It is like neti neti, not this or not that. Understanding Brahman is beyond the senses. He is the purest knowledge and illuminates like the source of light. So, Advaita Vedanta basically focused on the reality to be non-dual. That means for the Advaita philosophy, it is the ultimate Brahman which is one and which is real. So, it was devoid of the non-dualities, and the dualities like that of one and many, finite and infinite, subject and the object, these dualities has been negated in the Advaita philosophy. And they were considered to be the limitations of consciousness and that cannot comprehend the absolute, which is the Brahman. Why? Because due to ignorance, there is some kind of veil or ignorance due to which one is not able to realize the ultimate or the supreme, that is the Brahman. And in order to describe what Brahman is, basically there is no language that can absolutely describe what is Brahman. And it is hence considered to be neti neti, not this, not that. And Brahman is also considered to be beyond the senses. So you cannot just see Brahman and know it. Okay, like you would know other things, maybe what's there in the empirical world. Those things you can know through the senses or the sense organs. But Brahman is not something that you can understand with the help of the sense organs merely. It goes even beyond the senses, since it is the purest knowledge and it illuminates like the source of light. So Brahman is self-existent. He is described as Sachidanand, which means Sat meaning infinite truth, Chit means infinite consciousness, and Anand means infinite bliss. Advait accepts that Brahman is the one and whole and only reality. Other than Brahman, everything else, including the universe, the material objects, and even the individual selves, are false. So, Brahman, it is the Brahman which is considered to be the absolute and the only reality. Okay, and it is considered to be one. And anything apart from Brahman, that is considered to be false or mithya. And it is the Brahman which is considered or defined as Sachidanand, which includes infinite truth, infinite consciousness, and infinite bliss. Now, there are different levels of reality that has been described in the Advaita Vedanta. So, those three levels described in Advaita Vedanta regarding reality are Pratibhashik, Vyavharik, and Paramarthik. Pratibhashik Sat, it is about the illusory existence or apparent reality or unreality. Here, the reality is based on imagination alone. It is the level of experience in which the mind constructs its own reality. So, basically, there are three kinds of realities, or you can say stages in reality, and those are Pratibhashik, Vyavharik, and the Paramarthik. So, amongst these, the Pratibhashik Satta, it is about the illusory existence, and which, or we can also consider to be as apparent reality, or you can consider it to be as unreality. So, it is something which is illusory, which is not actually the case, it's just illusory or based on imagination alone. So, it is the level of experience in which the mind constructs its own reality. So, mind through the power of imagination or through the way it thinks, it is able to create these illusory existence or apparent realities, which might not be the actual case. So, this kind of reality, this kind of satta is known as Pratibhashik. The second is, or you can let us move a little further and discuss what is Pratibhashik Satta. So, Pratibhashik Satta or existence, such as objects presented in a mirage, is less real than the worldly existence. Its corresponding unreality is, however, different from that which characterizes the absolutely non-existent or the impossible, such as sky lotus, a lotus that grows in the sky, or the son of a barren woman. So, these are something which do not really exist. So, it's basically an unreality or non-existent. And these things are something which are produced through the illusory or the imaginative powers. So, a sky lotus, if we talk about a sky lotus, there's nothing as such which is considered to be a sky lotus in reality. Because sky lotus is a lotus that grows in the sky. So, there cannot be any such thing. So to say, it's only in the imagination that we can think of such a thing which do not really exist. Similarly is the case with a son of barren woman. So, if we are using the term barren woman, that itself conveys that a woman who is not able to bear a child. So, if we are talking about a barren woman, and let's say the son that we are referring to, the son of barren woman, may be the biological son of a barren woman. So which cannot really exist, because these two things that we are associating in this particular paragraph, particular sentence, are in a way contradictory to each other, because they cannot exist together. So it's not really corresponding to the reality as such, but it is only constructed with the help of imagination or in the mind of a person. So such kind of existence are known as pratibhashik satta. The independent existence of mirage and the world, both of which are due to certain causal condition, ceases once the causal conditions change. The causal condition is avidya or ignorance. The independent existence and experience of the world ceases to be with the gain of knowledge of Brahman. So if we are talking about the mirage, mirage is also something which is not actually present, but that's what is conveyed to us, or that's what we are grasping in a mistaken sense. So the independent existence of mirage and the world, those exist due to certain causal conditions. Okay, so if we are trying to relate mirage and the world, so to say, they both exist due to certain causal conditions. And if those causal conditions are removed, then it also ceases to exist, since it is based on those causal conditions. So it will cease to exist once the causal conditions are removed. And what is that causal connection? So that causal connection is avidya or ignorance. So it is because of avidya, the reason why we see a mirage or why we consider a world is precisely because of avidya or ignorance. So which make us believe that there is actually water that we are seeing from a far off distance, but it's not really water. It is due to our ignorance or due to the avidya that we come to see a mirage and consider it to be the real existence of water. So the independent existence and the experience of the world, that also ceases to be with the gain of the knowledge of the ultimate reality, which is Brahman. So similarly, just like a mirage, it disappears or it ceases to exist once we have the knowledge that it is illusory. Similarly, in the case of the existence and the experience of the world, that also ceases to be once we know that what is the ultimate or what is the ultimate reality. And that we come to know through the proper, or you can say through the valid knowledge of Brahman. So in this way you can relate the idea of mirage and the world, and how by removing the causal conditions we are able to remove the misconceptions that we have, and which is basically due to avidya or the ignorance. Now moving further, let's talk about Vyavharik Satta. It consists of the empirical or pragmatical reality. It is ever changing over time, thus empirically true at a given time and context, but not metaphysically true. It is our world of experience, the phenomenal world that we handle every day when we are awake. It is the level in which both Jeev and Ishwar are true. Here the material world is also true, but this is incomplete reality. So Vyavharik Satta, basically Vyavharik Satta is the empirical truth or the empirical reality, and it can also be considered as pragmatical reality. And since it is empirical, it is ever changing over time. And thus it will be empirically true at a given time and at a given context, but it wouldn't be metaphysically true. Because this kind of reality is empirical. It is in the empirical world, it is in the empirical sense. So it is, you can say, limited by time. So at a given time, in a given context, it could be true, but that does not mean it is metaphysically true. So it is considered as that our world of experience, which is considered to be the empirical world that we handle every day when we are awake. So the world in which we are living, the world in which we are presently living, that is the world of the Vyavharik Satta. Fine, the world in which we are performing various actions, the world in which we are doing our various activities. This world, this is the world which is the phenomenal world. And this world comes under the Vyavharik Satta, since it is the empirical reality. So they also mention that it is the level in which both Jeev, the living creatures or the individual selves, they and the Ishwar, they are considered to be true. So we can see that in this empirical sense, we do identify the Jeev. Jeev is the individual selves. So everyone is considered to be individual selves. So I consider myself, maybe I would consider myself to be different from some other individuals, and so would be the case with each individuals. So this identification of the individual Jeevs and also the Ishwar, that would become true in the Vyavharik Satta, in the empirical sense. So here the material world is also true, but it is incomplete reality. So it is not basically considered to be the ultimate or the supreme reality. It is only considered to be an empirical truth or the empirical reality, which could be considered or which is considered as incomplete reality. So it is not the complete reality that we are looking for. Coming now to the last type of reality, which is the Paramarthik Sat. It is the ultimate truth level. It is only, or it only is ultimately or absolutely real. It can exist by itself without depending on anything else. The reality that is metaphysically true and ontologically it is accurate. It is the state of experiencing that which is absolutely real and into which both other reality levels can be resolved. So this reality is the highest and it can't be supplanted by any other. So basically Paramarthik Satya is the ultimate Satya that we are focusing upon in the Advaita philosophy, which is the ultimate truth level. And it is only ultimately real. And it exists by itself, it does not depend on anything else. And here we can say that the reality that is metaphysically true and also it is ontologically accurate. We saw in the previous case that in Vyavharik Satta we cannot say that it is metaphysically true, though it can be empirically true, but it is not metaphysically true. While in the case of Paramarthik Sat, the reality is metaphysically true and ontologically accurate. And this is the state of experiencing which is absolutely real and into which both the other reality levels can be resolved. So basically this is the ultimate level, or you can say this is the ultimate truth level, where even which is considered to be metaphysically and ontologically real and accurate. Now with that, let us move further and look at one of the most important discussion that have been done in Advaita philosophy on avidya and maya. Since we saw in the previous few lectures that how it is due to avidya or ignorance that we are not able to realize the ultimate, though that ultimate is within us, the ultimate which is the Brahman is within us, but we are not able to realize it. And that precisely happens because of avidya. So let us now discuss what are the arguments given in the case of avidya and maya. So in Shankar's major commentaries, he introduces a distinction between higher Brahman and lower Brahman. The higher Brahman is comprehensible solely through knowledge, which is vidya, free from attachments, free from names and forms. It is identified as Nirgun Brahman, leading to liberation upon understanding. On the other hand, Shankar designates Sagun Brahman or God as lower Brahman, perceived from the perspective of ignorance or avidya. So there are two levels again in the case of Brahman. One is considered to be higher Brahman and the other is the lower Brahman. The higher Brahman is comprehensible solely through knowledge. So once we get knowledge, once we get right knowledge, we come to know or we come to realize the ultimate Brahman. And this Brahman, this higher Brahman, it is free from attachments, it is free from name, form, and therefore it is identified as Nirgun Brahman. And it is this Nirgun Brahman which leads us to liberation upon understanding what is the Nirgun Brahman or realizing the Brahman. On the other hand, Shankar designates Sagun Brahman, which is in other sense you can say that it was considered to be lower Brahman. And he relates it to the idea of God. And he says that it is perceived from the perspective of ignorance or avidya. So this lower Brahman happens due to ignorance or avidya, and that is considered as or seen as God or Sagun Brahman, in contrast to the Nirgun Brahman. So he questions the need for such differentiations between the higher Brahman is absolute, asserting that lower Brahman is the cause of diversity. The core focus of Advaita philosophy revolves around understanding Brahman, delving into the challenges encountered in this pursuit. So philosophers scrutinize the impediments hindering a comprehensive grasp of Brahman. Advaita philosophy says that except Brahman, the rest of the thing is only an appearance. Because of avidya, even the pot and clay, effect and cause, they become unreal at higher standpoint, which is the paramarthic level. But they are real at empirical standpoint, which is vyavharik level. So these things that we are talking about, even the clay and a pot, cause and effect, they would become unreal when we reach to the higher reality, which is the Paramarthik Sat. There it would become unreal, but in the level of Vyavaharik Satta, it would become real. So Gaudapada says that people fail to understand that the higher point of view because of the wrong interpretation. He gives another example how things are seen differently. So one sees a rope at dusk and thinks it as a snake. So due to the wrong interpretation of the senses. Shankar called this wrong interpretation superimposition, adhyasa. He defines it as the appearance in the form of memory or something personally experienced in some other place. Unless one has the idea of or seen a snake, it is not possible to mistake a rope for a snake. So, Shankar identifies such superimposition with the result of avidya or ignorance. The only way to overcome ignorance is to thrive by vidya, which is knowledge. So friends, I'll wind up the lecture for today, and we will continue it basically in the next lecture, in the coming up lecture, and we will discuss some of the other important points which are mentioned in the Advaita philosophy. Thank you.